going on? Brian Carroll here, out and about, and I want to give a quick thank you to Matt Brown. Matt Brown, the immortal, hooked me up with this Pothead Immortal Coffee brand. Hooked me up with this t-shirt it's been over a year now actually, so he hooked me up with that. Matt won his fight the other night, the brutal right hand knockout, which is awesome to see. Matt's 40 years old and still doing it and winning. That's a big thing. So props to Matt Brown. Check out his martial arts training center in Columbus, Ohio. It's really sweet, and he's just been renovating it and stuff too. So I'd go there if I lived closer. So today what I want to talk about is a very common question. How long did it take me to get pain-free? And people very often just want to say, okay, well, Brian did ABC in this amount of time, so I should be able to do it too. There's a lot of things that go into the reason why I was able to beat the back injury that I had, but also there's a reason why I've stayed back pain-free during this time. So you read in Gift of Injury. If you haven't, check it out. Talk about my comeback over a year process, getting back onto the platform. But I was able to wind my pain down pretty quick. And I think what some people don't quite get is how you have to set boundaries in your life, even in work. Sometimes you got to take some time off of work, unfortunately. When you have something like the back injury that I had, it takes a toll on everything, and you need to rest in order to be able to recover from it. So that takes sacrifice. That takes sacrifice, just like pushing for a world record in powerlifting does, turning pro in bodybuilding, winning strongman shows, whatever it may be. It takes sacrifice. Back rehab, getting back under the bar after an injury, whether it be back or other, it takes sacrifice to be able to get back there. Lifting is a privilege. It's not a right. You know, a lot of people think that they should just be able to lift heavy forever. I don't know where they get this from, but they are so surprised when they can't lift anymore after lifting heavy for a period of time, and just think that, man, I should be able to load my body up with 800 pounds forever. I should be able to bench 500 forever. Well, it's not the way it works. You know, we don't kid anyone about powerlifting, or if you're real about it, you know that it's not healthy. We're going way heavier than just building stiffness and building bones and connective tissue and such through strength training. We're going on the other side of that big time. So obviously it's not good for you. And anyone that thinks that I'm wrong just hasn't done it long enough, or hasn't really looked at the fact that if you lift heavy enough for long enough, no matter how strong you are, you're going to have some stuff rip off. It's going to tear. You know, we talked about this in the podcast with Dave Tate that I did 2 months ago, and a question came in on the super chat. Said, is it possible to lift in powerlifting the whole career and not have an injury? Well, I guess it's possible, but it's not very probable. You're going to get beat up. You're going to get dinged up. If you do it long enough and you do it hard enough, you're going to tear some things. You're going to tweak some things. Even if you don't avulse something or tear the tendon off or tear the muscle in half, you're going to get beat up and you're going to get achy and you're going to hurt. So with that said, it's not likely that you'll go through a full, I guess I can't really call it a powerlifting career unless it's over 10 years. Call it actually a career. But I don't know too many people that's been able to powerlift for 10 years plus at a high level that's never been injured. I'm sure there's some people that haven't been badly hurt or badly tweaked, but everyone's had an injury at one time or another, just about. Now, on the podcast, I basically said that, and Dave said, it's just not very likely for that to happen. If you're really pushing the envelope, you're going to get dinged up and something's going to hurt. So going back to my process, and how I've been able to remain injury-free, at least concerning the back, for a long time, I never abandoned the things that got me pain-free. I still move well. I did a video not long ago about spinal hygiene and daily movement patterns, and you'll see it's a running theme with me about how important it is to use your hips when you move. And you've got to mind your pain generators and your capacity. You've got to learn to say no to things that you know aren't going to be good for you. And this goes back to my rehab time, where I took a year working with Dr. McGill, got back in the platform at about 10 months after seeing Dr. McGill in 2013 for the 2014 Arnold, and I just wasn't quite ready. I just needed more time. I needed to drop some weight, and we talk about the details of that in Gift of Injury. But I still, doing everything right during that time, I still came up short, and that's super frustrating, especially when you have the world's best back guy in your corner. There's still things that I needed. I still needed more time. So with that said, just because you're doing everything right, it doesn't guarantee you success, as tough as that is to realize. So sometimes just doing the right things isn't enough. You got to go the extra mile, and you got to take time off from work sometimes. You've got to do things that are inconvenient, you know? Some people won't do good sleeping in. They lay in the bed too long, their back starts to hurt. Or they're not sleeping enough. That could be something too. They're standing too much, whatever it may be. You've got to go the extra mile. You got to learn to say no. You got to create boundaries at work at times, at home. Hell, even in your own neighborhood, you got to have boundaries, because people will want you to help them. If you're a bigger guy, especially, or a bigger girl, they want you to help them move. They get stuck with something in the car and they're trying to go inside the house, and here I am walking down the street and they're saying, hey, you know, Brian, come help me lift this safe, or help me move this, or help me carry that. You got to say no. You got to say no if you're not ready to do that. Now, I'm not saying that you just say no indefinitely to people, but if your back pain is something that you really want to beat, you got to sometimes learn to say no to people, and they're going to be disappointed. You know, your best friend might be moving from the 3rd floor. You got to move a piano. You got to move a refrigerator. Well, first of all, they should hire a moving company. So that's the first thing, just so things are insured and you don't get hurt, even if you aren't hurt right now or tweaked. But with that said, sometimes you got to have those very uncomfortable conversations with your boss, with your superiors, with your significant others. That was a slip. With your significant other, because as talked about in the back of Back Mechanic, certain sexual positions can cause some people pain. So you've got to move around those pain triggers. And I'm not going to talk about what positions, depending on your mechanism, aren't good. You have to check out Back Mechanic for that. But with all that said, sometimes you have to say no, and you got to hold back, and it can be very frustrating. Nobody said beating an injury, in particular back pain, would be easy, but it's doable. And you've got to check every box going down the line to do it. And it takes sacrifice, it takes discipline, it takes consistency. But for those that are out looking for a magic pill, a stretch, an adjustment, some kind of medication, you know, I've been getting a lot of people reaching out lately about stem cells and PRP and things like that. A lot of it's kind of up in there whether it can help or not. Now in the future, I'm sure these things can help with your healing, but you're still going to have to do your part. Just like I've said multiple times, people that get surgery and think that's a magical fix, they don't realize they still have to rehab. So I've talked enough about that. Learn to say no sometimes, especially if you've had a history with a certain mechanism, movement, or activity that you know isn't good for you. We all have people, or we all have activities that we know that just aren't good for us. So learning just to say no and not getting peer pressured into doing stuff you know is going to hurt you is key. And sometimes people will be frustrated with you, but They don't care about your back pain like you do because they're not living with it. They don't care about it like your wife or your husband or your boyfriend or girlfriend care, because they have to hear you talk about it all the time. So flat out, sometimes you've got to be selfish. And that's going to be the title of this video. Sometimes you need to be selfish. You got to pick the times where you've got to get healthy. You've got to take care of you because you've only got one body and one shot with it. Thank you so much for watching today. Please subscribe, like, and share if you enjoyed this video, and have a wonderful day.